The morning started like any other for 16-year-old Tiana Johnson. She woke up to the sound of rain tapping against her bedroom window, groaned at her alarm clock, and dragged herself out of bed. After throwing on a comfortable blue sweater and jeans, she grabbed her backpack and headed downstairs. Her mom was already in the kitchen packing a homemade lunch. "Don't forget your umbrella, honey," her mom said, sliding the brown paper bag across the counter. "The weather report says it's raining all day." Tiana nodded, tucking the lunch into her backpack. "Thanks, Mom." The bus ride to Westlake High School was quiet. Tiana put in her earbuds and stared out the window, watching raindrops race down the glass. Being one of only 12 black students in a school of over 1,000 kids wasn't easy. After 2 years, she had learned to keep to herself. When the bus pulled up to the school, Tiana took a deep breath before stepping out into the rain. She hurried through the front doors, shaking water from her umbrella. Morning classes went by slowly. In history, they discussed the civil rights movement. Tiana felt eyes on her whenever the teacher mentioned something particularly difficult about that time. In math, she got back a test with a big red A+ on top. 2 girls behind her whispered something about trying too hard. She pretended not to hear. By lunchtime, Tiana's stomach was growling. The cafeteria was already packed when she walked in. The noise hit her all at once. Hundreds of conversations, chairs scraping across the floor, the clatter of plastic trays. She scanned the room, looking for a quiet spot. There was one table in the corner with only 2 freshmen sitting at the far end. Perfect. Tiana made her way over and sat down, pulling out her lunch. Her mom had packed her favorite, a turkey sandwich with extra pickles, some carrot sticks, and a chocolate chip cookie. She pulled out her book too, a science fiction novel she'd been reading all week. She was halfway through her sandwich when she felt the air change around her. The table shook slightly as someone leaned against it. Tiana looked up. Heather Davis stood there, her long blonde hair pulled back in a tight ponytail. Behind her were 3 other girls from the cheerleading squad. Tiana recognized all of them. They were seniors, popular, and had never spoken a single word to her before today. Excuse me," Heather said, her voice sugary sweet but her eyes cold. "We need this table." Tiana looked around. There were at least 4 completely empty tables on the other side of the cafeteria. "I'm already eating here," Tiana said quietly, gesturing to her half-eaten lunch. Heather's smile disappeared. "Yeah, but we always sit here on Tuesdays. It's like our tradition." The girl to Heather's right, Brittany or Bethany, Tiana couldn't remember, snickered. "Come on, just move." "I don't understand why you can't sit somewhere else," Tiana said, trying to keep her voice steady. "There are empty tables right over there." The cafeteria was getting quieter. People at nearby tables were turning to watch what was happening. Tiana felt her cheeks grow warm. She hated being the center of attention. Heather leaned down, her face inches from Tiana's. She lowered her voice to a whisper that only Tiana could hear. "People like you don't belong here anyway." Tiana felt like she'd been slapped. She'd heard comments like this before, whispered in hallways, written on bathroom walls, posted anonymously online. But never so directly, never right to her face. For a moment, she couldn't breathe. The cafeteria seemed to spin around her. The 2 freshmen at the end of the table quickly gathered their things and left. "Smart move," Tiana thought. I said, "We need this table." Heather's voice was louder now, making sure everyone nearby could hear. "Are you deaf or something?" Something inside Tiana cracked open then, not in sadness but in clarity. She'd been dealing with this kind of treatment since freshman year. The sidelong glances, the accidental bumps in the hallway, the way certain teachers called on everyone, but her. The invitations that never came. She looked up at Heather, really looked at her. Behind the perfect makeup and designer clothes, Tiana saw something unexpected. Insecurity. Heather needed this power play. She needed to make someone feel small so she could feel big. Mr. Patterson, the vice principal, walked into the cafeteria just then. He was a tall man with kind eyes and a reputation for being fair. Tiana saw him pause at the door, taking in the scene. Tiana had 2 choices. She could either stay and argue, which might lead to more trouble, or she could walk away with her dignity intact. But walking away wasn't the same as giving up. Slowly, deliberately, she packed up her half-eaten lunch. She tucked her book into her backpack and stood up. "You can have the table," she said, her voice clear and steady. Several students at nearby tables watched in silence. "That's what I thought," Heather said with a smirk, already pulling out a chair. But Tiana wasn't done. Instead of slinking away, she walked straight toward Mr. Patterson. Her heart was pounding in her chest, but her steps didn't falter. "Mr. Patterson," she said when she reached him, "do you have a minute? I'd like to talk to you about something important." The vice principal looked from Tiana to the table where Heather and her friends were now sitting, laughing loudly as if to celebrate their victory. "Of course," he said. "Let's go to my office." As they left the cafeteria, Tiana felt dozens of eyes following her. She kept her back straight and her head high. This wasn't the first time she'd faced this kind of treatment, but she was determined it would be the last. In her backpack was a small journal. For months she'd been writing down every incident, dates, times, names, exactly what was said or done. She hadn't been sure why she was keeping the record, only that someday it might be important. Today was that day. What Heather didn't know, what none of them knew, was that Tiana wasn't just walking away. She was walking toward something much bigger. Mr. Patterson's office was warm compared to the chilly cafeteria. He gestured for Tiana to take a seat while he closed the door behind them. The rain outside tapped against the window, creating a gentle rhythm that helped calm Tiana's racing heart. "Would you like some water?" Mr. Patterson asked, noticing how Tiana's hands trembled slightly. She nodded, grateful for a moment to collect her thoughts. The vice principal filled a paper cup from the water cooler in the corner and handed it to her. She took small sips, the cool water helping to ease the tightness in her throat. "Now," Mr. Patterson said, sitting down across from her. "What did you want to talk about?" Tiana set the cup down on his desk. She'd imagined this conversation many times before, but now that the moment was here, doubt crept in. Would he take her seriously? Would speaking up make things worse? "It's about what just happened in the cafeteria," she started, "but it's also about more than that." Mr. Patterson leaned forward, giving her his full attention. His expression was open, patient. Tiana had always liked him. He was one of the few teachers who made eye contact with her when she spoke in school assemblies, who remembered her name in the hallway. "I'm listening," he said. Tiana took a deep breath and reached into her backpack. She pulled out a small blue notebook with worn edges. She'd been carrying it everywhere for months. "I've been keeping track," she explained, opening the notebook to show neat handwriting filling page after page. "Every time something happens. Big things, small things. Things people say when they think I can't hear. Things they do when they think no one's watching." Mr. Patterson's eyebrows rose in surprise as he glanced at the notebook. "May I?" he asked, holding out his hand. Tiana hesitated only for a second before handing it over. She watched as he flipped through the pages, his expression growing more serious with each turn. September 15th. Kelly asked if she could touch my hair during biology. When I said no, she told everyone I was being too sensitive. October 3rd. Found a note in my locker saying, "Go back where you came from." Didn't report it because I couldn't prove who did it. October 30th. Mrs. Wilson asked me to translate what Deshaun meant when he answered a question in class. Both of us are black, but we're not even from the same state. November 8th. 3 girls followed me into the bathroom and asked if I was only at this school because of affirmative action. One of them was Heather D. The entries continued, page after page. Some incidents were subtle, being consistently left out of group projects, teachers calling on her less often than other students. Others were more direct, comments about her hair, her skin, assumptions about where she lived or what music she liked. "Tiana," Mr. Patterson said finally, looking up from the notebook. "How long have you been keeping this record?" "Since the beginning of the school year," she replied. At first I thought maybe I was imagining things, that's why I started writing it all down, I wanted to be sure. And now? Now I know I'm not imagining it. And what happened today in the cafeteria, that wasn't about a table. Heather and her friends have plenty of places to sit. It was about making me feel like I don't belong here. Mr. Patterson nodded slowly, his fingers tapping thoughtfully on the notebook. Do your parents know about this? He asked. Some of it, not everything. Tiana looked down at her hands. My mom works 2 jobs. She's got enough to worry about without me adding to it. A moment of silence passed between them. Outside, the rain fell harder, drumming against the window. You know, Mr. Patterson said finally, 3 months ago I received a proposal from a student about forming a diversity council at Westlake. An excellent proposal, well-researched, thoughtful, with clear goals and action steps. Tiana nodded. That was me. I know. And I'm ashamed to say it's been sitting on my desk since then. Not because I didn't think it was a good idea, but because you were worried about pushback. Tiana finished for him. He nodded, looking genuinely regretful. Sometimes adults are afraid of change, even good change. I should have been braver, I'm sorry for that. His apology surprised her. Teachers rarely admitted when they were wrong. It's not too late, she said. Mr. Patterson looked at her with newfound respect. He'd expected tears, anger, a request to call her parents or punish Heather. Instead, this 16-year-old was sitting in his office showing more maturity than many adults he knew. You're right, he agreed. It's not too late at all. He reached for his phone and pressed the intercom button. Ms. Rivera, please cancel my afternoon appointments and ask Dr. Chen if she can join us immediately. We have an urgent situation that needs addressing. Tiana's eyes widened. Dr. Chen was the principal. This was getting bigger than she had expected. Mr. Patterson saw her surprise. Tiana, what you've brought me today isn't just about one incident or one student. This is a pattern, and it needs to be addressed at every level. If you're willing to share your experiences, I believe we can make real changes at Westlake. Tiana thought about the notebook in Mr. Patterson's hands, about all the times she'd felt invisible or too visible, about the younger students, the ones who looked like her who might face the same treatment if nothing changed. I'm willing, she said firmly. Good, Mr. Patterson replied, because what you did today, walking away from that confrontation and coming here instead, that took real courage. And courage like that shouldn't just change one moment. It should change everything. There was a knock at the door. Dr. Chen entered, her expression concerned. Victor, what's the emergency? Mr. Patterson handed her Tiana's notebook. We have a student who's been documenting a pattern of behavior that we need to address immediately. And we have a diversity council proposal that's long overdue for implementation. As Dr. Chen began to read, Tiana felt something shift inside her. The knot of anxiety that had lived in her chest since freshman year began to loosen. For the first time, she wasn't just being heard, she was being listened to. What had started as a painful moment in the cafeteria was turning into something else entirely, something that might make a difference not just for her but for everyone. The next morning, dark clouds still hung over Westlake High School. Tiana stepped off the bus, clutching her umbrella tightly. She'd barely slept last night, replaying yesterday's events in her mind over and over. After her meeting with Mr. Patterson, and Dr. Chen had stretched into the afternoon, her mom had picked her up from school. On the drive home, Tiana had finally shared everything. The journal, the cafeteria incident, the meetings with administration. I'm proud of you, her mom had said, reaching over to squeeze her hand at a red light. So proud. Those words had warmed Tiana through the evening, but now, facing the school building again, her stomach twisted with nerves. Would everyone be talking about what happened? Would Heather and her friends be waiting to make things even worse? Taking a deep breath, Tiana pushed through the front doors. The usual morning buzz filled the hallways as students gathered around lockers, compared homework, and rushed to first period. A few people glanced her way, but most seemed caught up in their own lives. No pointing, no whispers. Relief washed over her as she reached her locker. As she was putting away her umbrella, a small folded piece of paper slipped through the vents of her locker door. Puzzled, Tiana unfolded it. "Check your email." Mr. P. Curious, she pulled out her phone and opened her school email account. There it was, a message sent to every student and teacher at Westlake High. Important. Emergency assembly today, 10:30 a.m. auditorium. Mandatory attendance. Tiana's first 2 classes passed in a blur. In English, they discussed poetry, but her mind kept wandering to what might happen at the assembly. By 3rd period, rumors were flying. "I heard someone brought a weapon to school," a boy whispered in chemistry. "No way. My brother said it's about budget cuts," another student argued. When the assembly bell rang at 10:25, Tiana joined the river of students flowing toward the auditorium. She found a seat in the middle section, not too close to the front, not hiding in the back either. The buzz of hundreds of conversations filled the large room as everyone settled in. At exactly 10:30, Dr. Chen walked onto the stage and approached the microphone. The room gradually quieted. "Good morning, Westlake," she began, her voice firm but warm. "I've called this assembly because something happened yesterday that has made it clear we have an issue that needs to be addressed immediately." Tiana sank a little lower in her seat as Dr. Chen continued. "For too long, some students at this school have felt unwelcome, excluded, or worse. For too long, we as administrators and teachers have not done enough to change that. Today, that changes." Hush fell over the auditorium. This was not what anyone had expected. Yesterday, a student brought to our attention clear documentation of ongoing incidents of exclusion, microaggressions, and outright bullying that have been taking place in our hallways, classrooms, and common areas. Dr. Chen didn't mention Tiana by name, and for that she was grateful. But many students were turning now, looking around, wondering who had spoken up. Now I could stand here and talk about our zero-tolerance policy for bullying. I could remind you all about respect and kindness. But instead I want to share what we're going to do about it. Dr. Chen went on to outline immediate changes. Starting next week, all students would participate in inclusion workshops during advisory periods. The school would be implementing a new system for reporting incidents anonymously. And most significantly, Westlake would be launching its first ever Student Diversity Council, which would work directly with administration on making the school a more welcoming place for everyone. And I'm pleased to announce that the student whose proposal for this council has been sitting on our desks for far too long will be leading this initiative. More details will be shared later today. Again, no names were mentioned, but Tiana felt her cheeks warm. She hadn't expected to lead anything. She just wanted the bullying to stop. As the assembly ended and students began filing out, Tiana remained in her seat, letting the crowd thin before standing up. As she reached the hallway, a tap on her shoulder made her turn. Mr. Patterson stood there. "Can you come with me? There's someone who needs to speak with you." Confused, Tiana followed him to a small conference room near the main office. Her confusion turned to surprise when she saw who was waiting inside. Heather sat at the table, along with an elegant woman who was clearly her mother. They had the same blue eyes and sharp cheekbones. Dr. Chen sat across from them, her expression serious. "Please, Tiana, have a seat," Dr. Chen said, gesturing to an empty chair. Tiana sat down slowly, her heart pounding. Heather looked up briefly, then back down at her hands. Her eyes were red-rimmed. "Tiana," Dr. Chen began, "Mrs. Davis and Heather are here because we've reviewed the cafeteria security footage from yesterday, along with other incidents documented in your journal that involved Heather directly." Mrs. Davis spoke up, her voice tight with emotion. "My daughter has something she needs to say to you." Heather finally looked up. Gone was the cool, confident cheerleader from yesterday. This Heather looked smaller somehow, her shoulders hunched, her usual perfect makeup absent. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "What I said to you was wrong. Really, wrong." Tiana remained silent, waiting. "The things I said, they're things I've heard at home." Heather glanced quickly at her mother, who flinched but nodded for her to continue. I never really thought about how they would make you feel. I wanted to look cool in front of my friends. Mrs. Davis cleared her throat. We've had a very long discussion at home about this, about the values we claim to have versus the words we actually use. She looked directly at Tiana. I want to apologize too. Children learn what they live. The room fell silent. Tiana hadn't expected this. Not an apology, not this vulnerability from the girl who had seemed so untouchable. Just yesterday, when Dr. Chen told us about the Diversity Council, Heather continued, and that you'd proposed it months ago, I realized you've been trying to make things better while I've been making them worse. Dr. Chen spoke up. Heather will be facing consequences for her actions, including suspension. But she's also asked if there's a way she can help with the new council when she returns. We wanted to ask how you felt about that. Tiana took a deep breath. Part of her wanted to say no. Why should Heather get to be part of something positive after causing so much hurt? But another part of her recognized something important was happening here. Real change never came from shutting people out. The whole point of the council is to bring different perspectives together, Tiana said finally. If she's serious about helping, then yes, she can be involved. Relief flickered across Heather's face. It wasn't forgiveness exactly. That would take time. But it was a beginning. As Tiana left the conference room, she realized something had shifted inside her. The school halls looked the same, the rain still fell outside, but something was different. For the first time since coming to Westlake, she wasn't just surviving each day, she was changing things. 2 weeks passed quickly. The rain finally stopped, and spring sunshine bathed Westlake High School in warm light. Tiana had been busy every day after school, working with Mr. Patterson and Dr. Chen to prepare for the first official Diversity Council workshop, which was scheduled for Friday afternoon. Nervous? Asked Gabriella, one of the first students to volunteer for the council. They were sitting in the library during lunch, going over their presentation one last time. Tiana nodded, adjusting the stack of handouts they'd prepared. A little. The whole school will be there. You'll be amazing, Gabriella assured her. Everyone's talking about it, you know. People are actually excited. Tiana wasn't so sure about that. While many students had shown interest in the council, others had rolled their eyes or made comments about political correctness gone wild. She'd overheard 2 boys in her history class complaining about having to sit through a lecture about feelings instead of having regular classes on Friday. But much had changed in those 2 weeks. For one thing, Tiana no longer ate lunch alone. Besides Gabriella, she'd been joined by Devin from her math class, Lily from the debate team, and several other students who had reached out after the assembly. Some had shared their own stories of feeling excluded or misunderstood. Others simply wanted to help make the school better. As Friday approached, Tiana found herself checking her phone more often, wondering if she'd hear from Heather. The cheerleader's week-long suspension had ended on Monday, but she hadn't returned to school yet. Rumors circulated that she'd transferred, or that her parents had pulled her out. Tiana wasn't sure how to feel about that. On Thursday afternoon, as Tiana was leaving school, her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Hi, Tiana, it's Heather. Mr. Patterson gave me your number. Can we talk before tomorrow? I'll be at Riverside Park near the Big Oak at 4 if you can come. Tiana stared at the message, her thumb hovering over the reply button. Part of her wanted to ignore it. What more was there to say? But curiosity won out. Okay, see you at 4. Riverside Park was a 10-minute walk from school. Tiana spotted Heather immediately, sitting alone on a bench beneath the massive oak tree. She wore jeans and a simple gray sweatshirt, a far cry from her usual stylish outfits. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and without makeup, she looked younger, more vulnerable. Thanks for coming, Heather said as Tiana approached. I wasn't sure you would. Tiana sat down, leaving space between them. What did you want to talk about? Heather took a deep breath. I'm coming back to school tomorrow, for the workshop. and I wanted to see you first, without everyone watching." A family with a golden retriever walked by, the dog straining at its leash, tail wagging frantically. Both girls watched until they were out of earshot. "I've been in therapy," Heather continued, her voice low. "Every day this week. My parents found someone who specializes in helping people unlearn prejudice." She twisted her hands in her lap. "I didn't want to go at first. I was so angry. At you, at the school, at my parents. But mostly at myself, I think." She looked at Tiana directly for the first time. "The therapist asked me to think about why I said those things to you, why I felt the need to push you out of my space, and I realized I don't really know who I am without putting other people down." Tiana remained silent, taking in Heather's words. They sat with the weight of that confession between them. "Anyway," Heather continued, "I know you didn't have to let me be part of the council. You could have said no, and everyone would have understood, so I wanted to say thank you, and to tell you I'm serious about helping." "Why?" Tiana asked. "Why do you care about the council now?" Heather looked out over the park where children were playing on the swings. "My little cousin Zoe started kindergarten this year," she said softly. "She's the sweetest kid. Last week, she came home crying because some boy told her skin was dirty and she couldn't play with the other kids." Heather's voice broke. "She's 5 years old, and I realized I've been that boy. I've made people feel exactly how that boy made Zoe feel." A tear slipped down Heather's cheek, which she quickly wiped away. "I don't want to be that person anymore," she whispered. For the first time, Tiana felt something other than anger or fear when looking at Heather. Something like understanding, or maybe even the beginning of compassion. "The workshop starts at 2 tomorrow," Tiana said. "We're meeting at 1 to set up." Heather nodded. "I'll be there at 1. When Friday afternoon arrived, the school auditorium was packed. Students filed in, some curious, others indifferent, a few openly skeptical. Teachers stationed themselves around the room, ready to help maintain order if needed. Backstage, Tiana peeked through the curtain at the growing crowd, her heart hammering in her chest. The other council members were reviewing notes or adjusting the visual aids they'd prepared. "You okay?" asked a voice beside her. Heather had arrived exactly at 1 as promised, and had spent the past hour helping set up chairs and distribute materials without complaint. "Just nervous," Tiana admitted. "What if they don't listen? What if nothing changes?" Heather considered this. Some won't listen. Some things won't change, not right away. But some will. She gestured toward the audience. "Look." Tiana peered out again. Now she noticed what she'd missed before. A group of freshman girls huddled together, looking both nervous and hopeful. The captain of the basketball team nodding thoughtfully as he read through the handout they'd distributed. 2 teachers deep in conversation, gesturing toward the stage with encouraging smiles. At exactly 2 o'clock, Dr. Chen walked to the center of the stage. The room gradually fell silent. "Good afternoon, everyone. Today marks an important step forward for our school community. I'm proud to introduce the founding members of Westlake's first Student Diversity Council." Tiana took a deep breath and stepped onto the stage with the others. The bright lights made it hard to see the audience clearly, which was actually a relief. She took her place at the podium, unfolding her notes with slightly trembling hands. "Hi, everyone. My name is Tiana Johnson." Her voice came out steadier than she expected. As she began to speak about why they were all there, about the small daily interactions that could harm or heal, she felt her nervousness giving way to something stronger. Looking out at the sea of faces, some attentive, some bored, some skeptical, she knew not everyone would be changed by one workshop. But as she glanced to her right and saw Heather standing with the other council members, as she thought about the journey that had brought them all to this moment, Tiana realized something important. Change had already begun. By the end of May, Westlake High School looked different. Not in its brick buildings or wide hallways, but in the way students moved through those spaces. Small changes had bloomed like spring flowers across the campus. The cafeteria now had a friendship table, where anyone sitting alone could find company. Study groups in the library were more diverse than ever before. And in the main hallway, a colorful bulletin board displayed student artwork celebrating different cultures and backgrounds. Tiana noticed these changes as she hurried to her final Diversity Council meeting of the school year. They had accomplished more than she'd ever imagined possible in just a few months. "Sorry I'm late," she said, slipping into the classroom where the other council members were already gathered. "Ms. Wilson wanted to talk about my final project." "No worries," said Devon, looking up from the laptop where he was finalizing their end-of-year presentation. "We're just putting the finishing touches on this." Heather moved her backpack from an empty chair so Tiana could sit. "How's the project coming along?" "Really good. She said it might be published in the district newsletter." The project was a photo essay documenting the changes at Westlake. Tiana had captured images throughout the spring, students from different backgrounds eating lunch together, teachers participating in cultural awareness training, the standing room only attendance at their International Food Festival in April. "All right, everyone," Mr. Patterson called from the front of the room. "Let's get started. We have a lot to cover today." The meeting kicked off with reports from each of the council's committees. The Education Committee had successfully lobbied for more diverse authors in next year's English curriculum. The Events Committee shared feedback from their most recent assembly. The Outreach Committee had established partnerships with 2 nearby middle schools to help younger students prepare for high school. "Now for our final order of business," Mr. Patterson said when the reports were complete. "As you know, Dr. Chen has secured funding for 2 students to attend the National Youth Leadership Conference in Washington, D.C. this summer. The selection committee has reviewed all applications and made their decision." Tiana held her breath. She had applied, but so had many other council members. The opportunity to represent Westlake at a national conference was huge, a chance to share their success story and learn from other schools. "The 2 representatives will be—" Mr. Patterson paused, smiling at the tension in the room. "Tiana Johnson and Heather Davis." A chorus of congratulations erupted around them. Devon gave Tiana a high five. Gabriella hugged her. Tiana felt a mix of excitement and disbelief wash over her. "Are you serious?" she asked Mr. Patterson. "Completely serious. Your application essay was outstanding, Tiana. The committee was particularly impressed by your reflection on how conflict can lead to positive change when people are willing to listen and learn." Tiana glanced at Heather, who looked equally shocked. "And what about Heather's essay?" Mr. Patterson's expression softened. "Heather wrote about her personal journey this year, from being part of the problem to being part of the solution. Her honesty about her mistakes and her commitment to doing better. Well, it was powerful." As the meeting wrapped up and students began gathering their things, Heather approached Tiana by the door. "Looks like we're going to D.C. together," she said, a hint of uncertainty in her voice. "Looks like it." Tiana adjusted her backpack strap. "Are you excited?" "Honestly, I'm terrified. What if people there find out how this all started? What if they think I don't deserve to be there?" The vulnerability in Heather's question surprised Tiana. 6 months ago, she couldn't have imagined having this kind of conversation with Heather Davis, the girl who had told her she didn't belong. "Then you'll tell them the truth," Tiana said simply. "That people can change. That's kind of the whole point of what we're doing, right?" Heather nodded, looking relieved. "Right." As they walked out into the hallway together, Tiana spotted a familiar face. Alex Chen, a quiet freshman who had attended every single workshop they'd offered. "Hey, Alex," Tiana called. "Everything okay?" The younger boy hurried over to them, clutching a folder to his chest. "Actually, I wanted to ask you something. Both of you." His eyes darted between Tiana and Heather. "I'm thinking about running for student council next year. I want to make sure the Diversity Council's work continues." "That's great," Heather said encouragingly. "The thing is—" Alex hesitated. "Some kids said someone like me could never win, that I'm too quiet, too different." Tiana and Heather exchanged a glance. They both recognized the uncertainty in Alex's voice, the same doubt Tiana had felt, sitting alone in the cafeteria, the same insecurity Heather had masked with cruelty. "Someone like you is exactly who should run," Tiana said firmly. "Do you mean that?" Alex asked. "Absolutely. Heather agreed. And we'll help you. Campaign posters, speech prep, whatever you need. The relief on Alex's face was immediate. Really? That would be amazing. I have some ideas already. He opened his folder, showing them sketches for posters and notes for a campaign platform. As Alex talked excitedly about his vision for the school, Tiana felt a wave of something powerful wash over her. Not pride exactly, but something deeper. The realization that what had started as a painful moment in the cafeteria had created ripples far beyond anything she could have imagined. On the last day of school, Tiana found herself back in the cafeteria. Unlike that rainy day in February, today the sun streamed through the windows, casting warm light across the tables. Unlike that day, she wasn't sitting alone. "Can you believe it's summer already?" Devin asked, biting into his sandwich. "I can't believe we're going to be juniors," Gabriella added. "Just 2 more years. 2 more years to make this place even better," Heather said, glancing around the cafeteria thoughtfully. Tiana followed her gaze. At a nearby table, Alex sat with a diverse group of freshmen, all wearing buttons with his campaign slogan for next year. At another, the basketball team mingled with members of the chess club, a friendship that had formed during one of the council's mixers. By the windows, Ms. Wilson was deep in conversation with 2 student teachers who would be implementing the new curriculum in the fall. "You know what's weird?" Tiana said. "If you had told me on that first day when you told me to leave this table that we'd end up here, I would never have believed it." "Me neither," Heather admitted. "I'm still sorry about that day." "I'm not," Tiana said, surprising herself as much as the others. "I mean, I'm not glad it happened, but if it hadn't, none of this would exist." She gestured to the cafeteria around them, to the visible changes in how students interacted, to the subtle shift in the school's atmosphere. As the final bell of the year rang and students began clearing their trays, cheering and making summer plans, Tiana took one last look around. The cafeteria was just a room, 4 walls, some tables, a place to eat lunch. But now it was also something more. It was where everything had changed.